I posted yesterday that the Jaguar is going to be taking precedence over Roscoe for a while. So I've been out here in the shop today working on it a bit, and I realized I really haven't gone over what the Jaggernaut is. I kind of mentioned it in one of my early videos, but this is the Jaggernaut. It's an 87 Jaguar XJ6 that we raced at Omaha back in 2010. Blew the engine, the original XK straight six, and I spent about 7 years trying to get this 500-inch Cadillac motor in here and running. We took it to the Houston race in 2017, and it was an utter disaster. This car didn't run right, and I kind of have unfinished business with it. I want to get it out there and run it good once. And so to that end, I'm working on getting it back together. If you saw the video yesterday, this stuff wasn't even assembled. I've got to put torque converter bolts back in it. I can't find them, but I got the rest of the engine mostly back together. I still have to attach the cooling fans and wire them up, and I got to bolt down. This stuff's just kind of loose at the moment. I know I've got a video on, where I've mentioned don't leave your bolts loose. I'm going to do that before I finish up. Got some parts up on top to finish putting on it, but my goal is to rehabilitate this car and get it ready for Lemons at Hallett in May. To that end, since it failed so bad in Houston, I've done some upgrades. I've got a new radiator in it. It's a small block Chevy, big block Chevy, Speedway Motors radiator. Dirt cheap. Doesn't fit. I had to cut a hole in the hood for the radiator cap, but I've already got a big hole for the scoop. The scoop is the original hood scoop off the black metal Volvo that was that ran in the early years of Lemons. I got it without it didn't have the flapper valves or anything. Someone makes a kit for $16 where you can put all that stuff back in one of those if you have just an empty shell of a scoop. So I've got that together. Quick note, if you're going to run a scoop with an actuator like this, if you notice I got a cable here. If this hangs up like this, it's not going to keep the throttle wide open. So keep that in mind if you wire one of these up. Put it on a loose cable to where if you floor it and you let go, this won't jam up that. So I'm running an external oil cooler, the original Jaguar oil cooler. When we cooked the motor at Omaha, the gauge pegged out at 100 degrees Celsius, which is like 280 degrees, and then we did 10 more laps. We really cooked the motor, but we drove it onto the trailer. I love oil coolers, and I'm going to run one on this. I did when we were at Houston last time, but we had some other issues, and we just left the oil cooler off to get jobs done faster and whatnot, get the car back on track. I've also taken the opportunity. I got rid of the twin 11-gallon fuel tanks because they were garbage and they were clogged up and they had bad gas in them that was just ruining the fuel system. So I've got this. It's only a 16-gallon cell, but it's a it's cheap plastic cell. Lemon says don't run them. It's not against the rules to run one, but you have a hard time passing tech. Well, this one is mounted. You can see the amount of distance between that fuel cell and the rear bumper. I mean, there's a lot of room there. Electric fuel pump mounted in the factory spot pretty much, but instead of having a complicated setup for switching tanks and whatnot, we just got that. And that was another issue. The multi-tank setup that Jaguar had was just insane. So running this, ran hardline all the way up the front, got AN fittings for this stuff back here. Yeah, I've got too much stuff on this side. I am rewiring the car from scratch. I've got some wires already back here ready to go, but I'm pulling out all that old jacked up Jaguar wiring that I've got spliced together, and I'm going to run color-coded wires on everything so that we know what everything is. Yellow is going to be lighting, because I'm going to have headlights and taillights on this just in case we ever have a night race. I'm running green for the fuel system. I believe a lot of the engine stuff I have is going to be wired in orange, and then I'm going to have a dedicated circuit for accessories. If we, install a cool suit or whatever else in here, we can run other stuff. Got a nice centrally mounted switch panel there that everybody can reach. I need to make a little indicator for the shifter. Hadn't done that. The wiring mess up there is actually not terribly complicated, but it's going to get redone and rerouted and nice and neatified. I am going to I'm going to try to get some real gauges in here instead of just the dummy lights. Half the dummy lights aren't working right now anyway, so that'll take a bit. The cage is up to date. I've got door bars on both sides. They recommend a dash bar, but this thing is a tank, and I don't think they're going to be upset about me not running a dash bar. It's not required in the rules. And this thing is almost 4,000 pounds. I want to say it's 3,800 pounds last time we raced it. So the motor, the current motor, is a big block Cadillac. It's a 500-inch motor. I got a TH400 transmission behind it. The headers I made myself to fit this chassis. Supposedly you can dimple right there where the firewall's dimpled and run the stock manifolds. I threw the stock manifolds away years ago. So I had to come up with a header system that would work. And these are actually kind of a tri-Y design. And whenever I went from my professional built headers to these, I had to jet the engine a whole lot more rich. I used some pretty good sized pipe on these, so I think it's actually less restrictive than the professionally built headers, even though it's angle cut tubing. You know, the bends are, I try to keep the bends nice and radiused, you know, where I could, and tuck them in. And one of my goals with an exhaust system is always to be increasing size as you go out. If you go from a larger pipe to a smaller pipe, you create a restriction. If you go from a smaller pipe to a larger pipe, you know, your velocity may stall, but you're not going to get reversion. Port velocity is important, but preventing reversion is more important to my mind. You don't want the exhaust, you know, hitting a restriction and bouncing back the other way and keeping more exhaust from coming out. So that was my goal with these headers. I knew it was going to be a wonky mess of me welding crap. So I just made sure I started off with 2-inch pipe up here, and it goes to 2.5 inch, and then it goes to 3 inch when it goes out. So the outlets are 3 inch. I've got some sound deadeners in there now. I'll pull those out whenever we go to race, but yeah, 3-inch outlets. The fenders are trailer fenders that have been, I ended up doing those at different times. I did the back one first, and a few months later, all I could find was a round one. I couldn't find a square one that matched that. So it's got mismatched fenders front and rear. But basically I took a trailer fender, cut it in half, and got the body work and welded it in there. You can stand on these, and they don't bend. So up front, I can't quite fit. I've got a set of Corvette Grand Sport wheels that I bought used on Craigslist years ago, cheap, and I can't quite fit them on front. 17-inch wheels will hit the ball joints. So instead, I'm going to run, I've got some stamped steel wheels I'm going to run up front, and I'll run the Corvette Grand Sport wheels in the back here. And they fit just fine in the back, and even the 315s will fit in this wheel well. So if you don't know, the Jaguar is a 4-wheel independent suspension. In the rear, though, your drive shaft is your upper link. So it's not the best setup for an independent rear. You know, a good stick axle with a panhard bar and tri-link would probably out-corner it. But for this big beast of a car, it's a robust setup. I redid the suspension, but the shocks probably need replacing. I'm going to have to bleed the brakes really good. I'm trying to find a proper cap. This is a cap off a Chrysler that's on here right now. The factory cap split, and I looked these up online. Just the cap alone is 150 bucks. I may have to see what I can do. I've looked into remote reservoirs, and my problem is this is already mounted high, so where do I mount a remote reservoir that's going to fill that like it's supposed to? We'll see. Then also the power steering rack I depowered, but we want some power steering back on it, so I'm going to have to replace the rack again. And I need to put a fire system in this. There's no fire system in the car yet, and that's required in lemons now. It wasn't the last time it ran. But all in all, it's a beast of a car, and if we can get it running right, it should be. I don't want to say it's gonna dominate, because I know better, but it should be fun, and it should be, you know, it should be as dirt simple as Fred Flintstone's car. So that's the Jaggernaut, and follow along while I try to get this beast running again. I should be able to just dump gas in it and get the engine fire up, but I really want to get the torque converter bolts in right, and finish up the wiring on I want to do the wiring on the car before I go playing with making it run and whatnot.